fundamentally, sales is about relationships. I just like meeting different people, and generally we'll always say business does come off the back of it, but we don't necessarily need to always be talking about, hey, this is what we do, come and talk to us. It's more about just chatting to somebody and saying, well, what do you do? We do this. You can have all the connections in the world, but if you don't know how to use them or work with them, it's useless. Literally, I was in Warwick Hospital with a notepad when I came up with this idea.
In this Sports and Outdoor Mentors episode, I chat with Dave Birch, founder and CEO of Endurance Zone, the world's largest sports rewards, loyalty and engagement platform. We chat about how a serious back injury derailed his professional rugby career that led to the inspiration behind his business today. We chat about scaling the business, finding the right co-founders, getting external funding that adds more value than just financial, and much more. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you do, please like and comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. So, Dave, great to finally have the chance to sit down and speak. We've been talking about this for a while, so it's great to be able to come here and check out your amazing offices and the place where you're working. Pretty cool place. So that's
yeah, we like it here. It's pretty cool. But
yeah,
imagine. No, great to finally get together.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe let's start with, what would you like actually the audience to kind of get out of this discussion? Is there, what would you like to kind of share in terms of something that you think could benefit the audience?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, it's an understanding of two things. Who is Endurance Zone? What do we do? But I guess more importantly, the journey as to why we got here, because I think classic entrepreneurship is around, you've identified something that has affected you, is a problem that you've identified, and then you just try and fix it yourself, right? And so I think it's that, where did we start from and why did we start it? What was the problem that we were trying to fix, and where have we got to? Because I'll tell you what it was when we first thought it was, is not where we are now.
Okay, interesting. Okay, great. Well, we'll spend most of the next hour or so talking about Endurance Zone, but before we get to that, I thought it'd be great to give the audience a little bit of background to kind of understand where you've come from, as it were. And I guess the story probably starts with rugby. Obviously, you played rugby at elite level a few times, I believe, with England even.
A few England caps on them about, yeah.
So that's pretty amazing. So, and I guess as with everything, playing sport at that sort of level, you go through your highs and your lows. And you've stated before that, you're somebody that's very competitive, and I'm sure that got you through many of those kind of low times. But I'm wondering, because in the end, I think it was quite a serious injury that stopped you playing rugby. So how did you handle that? I mean, mentally, that must have been, I would imagine, a pretty tough period for you, other than obviously physically as well, which goes without saying.
Yeah, I mean, I had 2 discs removed and my spine fused, which was very painful and a pretty extensive recovery period. But it's really interesting, this one, because having played rugby, I am competitive, but I'm also a super positive person. And even my board will say to me, like, I don't understand how you stay positive all the time. Like, it's just, I think when people start thinking about negativity and negative thoughts come in, it actually can take over the whole being and the whole life. And actually for me, it's about, look, you can't change that outcome now, so how do we make the best of it? So I think there's probably an element of sadness around I've stopped playing, but at the same time, I'd had 2 discs removed and my spine fused. It was like, clearly it was time for me to stop. And actually that was the catalyst to starting this business. I mean, literally, I was in Warwick Hospital with a notepad when I came up with this idea.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
So one led to the other. So I didn't really have much of a time I went straight from finishing to going, I've got this idea. Right, that was my focus then, recovery, and how do I expand on this?
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great to hear. That positive mindset then obviously served you really well, because I'm sure many people could find themselves in a bit of a difficult place in that sort of situation. Because was playing at that level of rugby kind of a long-term plan? I mean, did competitive sport play a kind of key role throughout your life up until that point?
Yeah, very much so, and actually probably more than most people are aware of, because it's not overly something I talk about. So if I go back a little bit further, so I'm adopted. Lovely, I was adopted when I was about 7. Parents fostered me and then adopted me, and my initial start to life wasn't great. Not the place to go into it, but probably most things that where your head goes, I've had done. So my parents were like, oh, big boisterous kid. He's got such a vibrant zest for life. But my word, is he got some energy. Yeah. So 7 years old, they put me into rugby, and I'm still in touch with my coach from when I was sort of 7 to 14, because that for me was what was the catalyst to build everything in my life. The structure, and I've got a son now who he likes football, but for me, I think that team sport, the camaraderie, the challenges, the knocks, the ups, the downs, the good weather, the cold weather, that whole thing, I think for certain people, but certainly for me, it was a perfect focus that kept me on a straight course of which I could have gone off at any point.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Okay, yeah, that's amazing. So that competitive streak then started from an early age, and that's obviously served you well to today, I would say.
Yeah, very much so. And my brother's the same. So again, brother's adopted, not biological brother. He was very sporty. I think my parents very much had let's get these two boys into sport pretty early. He was basketball. I was rugby, but we'd spend weekends playing together all the time, and we were competitive against each other. I'm 2.5 years older, but he was better at basketball than me, which really pissed me off, right? So I'd then try harder to be better. I had the size advantage in rugby, so he was never going to be better than me. But yeah, I think sport's good for that all through. It's not just about the competitive piece, it's about understanding how to take knocks and then get back up and go again.
Yeah. So if then the rugby led directly into Endurance Zone, so I guess then while you were still playing rugby, because I think your first, let's say, professional role was actually at a company called Samurai Sports, where you were a sales rep.
Yeah, correct.
So kind of looking back at that period, obviously, sales has somehow played a key role throughout your career again to where you are today. But what were the kind of takeaways when you look back at that period? And in fact, maybe more specifically, you've talked before about the fact that when you were in that role, you actually found it quite easy.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, what were you doing that kind of made it easy for you? What was it that you were like, okay, I can do this is easy? Was it just a mindset thing, or was it, why was it easy for you?
Do you know, we still have this conversation in our offices now. So just come out of a board meeting this afternoon, we were talking about this, and some of the clients that we've got coming on board that we really shouldn't probably be winning at our size versus their size. And we were saying about it's down to, I think a lot of salespeople can take it very seriously, right? Yes, there's KPIs, there's always going to be KPIs, there's always going to be targets you got to hit. But fundamentally, sales is about relationships. And we are big believers across the business, and always from a young age, for me, it's been about build the relationship with somebody. If you've got the product that they want, fine. But if you've got a product that, in take Samurai, there's a Kuma, there's Cougar, there's Canterbury, they all do the same, right? Pricing's pricing, they're all much of a muchness. Those people are just going to buy you. So my big thing was hard work and effort. So I'd be traveling to rugby clubs evenings, weekends. You think rugby clubs, they train on a Tuesday and a Thursday. A lot of the guys and girls that were the sales reps would be going out to somebody's office, seeing the club chairman, at a table somewhere. I'd go in the evening. I'd see the lads. I'd talk to them. I'd swap war stories about when I was at England and I was doing this and that. They know then that you're one of them. And then it was about really just that relationship led to, actually, I like this guy. I want to work with this guy. And that fundamentally, that also is what works in our business, and I'm sure we'll touch on this, so I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we hire very much based on the personality than the experience that they've got, because we can train our product, we can train what you're selling. It's down to, can you build relationships with people? Are you likable? Can you network in a non-networky way, if you know what I mean? And I've always been that way. I'm a sociable person. I love learning about other people's journeys and jobs and what they do, and if you can get on with somebody, they'll want to work with you.
Absolutely. And that probably leads then quite nicely into your next role. So you moved, I think, from Samurai into recruitment. So you worked with Michael Page. So obviously one of the largest recruitment businesses globally. And I think you were working on senior finance roles for like the top four, the big four consulting agencies. So maybe looking back at that period, because you were there for what, 4 or 5 years? What would you say is the best and the worst about your time there in recruitment?
Yeah, okay. So if I talk about the journey, when we say about that sort of journey competitive piece to Michael Page, I'd gone from selling teamwear into rugby clubs and swapping war stories, and then I was kind of like, I've got to grow up a bit here. I can't be doing this when I'm 80. I need to think about my long-term career. I remember going to Michael Page and saying, look, rugby, I've been sales at Samurai, had the stats of top salesman for 4 years on the bounce, so I had that, and they went, well, we really like sports people here. We're all about targets and rewarding people for doing well, and we've always got league tables, and sports people play into that quite well. I remember going in and them saying, like, come in for an interview if you thought about recruitment. And I said, well, I haven't, but okay. So interviewed with Louise, who was my manager at the time in Leicester, and she said, well, look, second stage would be with our director, Sean, but he happens to be upstairs. Do you want to meet him? I was like, yeah, great, fantastic. So bearing in mind, I told my wife I'm going to pop in for an hour to see these guys. I then met Sean, again, great guy, learnt an awful lot from Sean. I think I spent maybe an hour with him, and he said, look, what we now would do with role play, and it's that kind of, I want you to come in, I'm going to be recruiting for a job, and I want you to kind of, open questions and fact find about that, but you need to do it with our sort of area MD, Steve. He happens to be upstairs today. Do you want to meet him? But you need to go away and prep. And I was like, yeah, sure. They were like, right, well, there's a cafe across the road. And I was like, yeah, great, okay. So it was 7 hours in this whole interview process. And by the end of it, they'd offered me the job. But again, I think it's that mentality of, oh, let's go. Yeah, this is great. What's the worst that can happen here? They either give you some positive feedback or they give you some constructive feedback. Yeah. So, but recruitment is a different kettle of fish when it comes to sales. Yeah. Michael Page is a different kettle of fish when it comes to, again, recruitment. They are one of the big boys. They are very KPI driven. They churn through staff. I'm not necessarily saying that's a negative, because I learned a hell of a lot there, but it was hard work. It was very much, how many phone calls have you made today? How many CVs have you sent out of prospective candidates to audit tax directors? They're not expecting it. You're just speccing them. They call you speccing them out, or your follow-ups. But it was so KPI, number driven, process driven, that again, you learned an awful lot during that, and you can take then the positives again. Well, that actually worked really well. That specking CVs and cold calling people and stuff like that, the way that they did it wasn't right, because it was just numbers. There was no relationship, no personality behind it. It was just, cool, no, did you like that CV? No. Did you need somebody? Right, no. Okay, you're on to the next one. So it really positive in terms of their structure. I mean, before you even touched a phone there, you did they called it Sales Academy. You were down in London. It was a whole week. You were doing role play, you were doing open questions, closed question. They got you doing Myers-Briggs training. So I mean, in terms of a sales process structure, I'd advise anybody to go and spend some time on Michael Page, and then go and use that to create something yourself.
Considering what you know now, if you went back into recruitment today, what would you do differently?
I do more events, and I would work with less clients and land and expand, as you would call it. So it was very much about, these are all recruitment terms that you probably don't do yourself, so I would never say that you would, but spray and pray was always the thing that say, here's a CV, send it to 100 people. It's just a numbers game, something's going to stick. But actually, you might have annoyed 90% of those people that go, do you know what, you're not a true recruiter. You don't really understand my needs. You don't really understand my business. You're just kind of hoping that I'm going to bite on this CV. And do you know what? It works. Michael Page built global empire out of it, right? But for me, it would be boutique-y. It would be tailored towards a handful of clients that you had their trust. They didn't go anywhere else. You knew exactly what their business did. You knew exactly the culture that they've got, the types of people that work. And then when you pick the phone up and say, I've got somebody here for you, they listen.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I recruited when I was doing industry finance for the last sort of part of my career there. I placed a finance director into National Grid. I then pulled him out of National Grid and put him into Goodyear. He was then at Goodyear for around 3 years. Fantastic job for them, great reference. He now is my finance director. So when I needed a finance director, and I grew quite a good relationship with him. So I didn't know him from Adam, but he liked cycling. I was into cycling. Yeah. And I remember saying to him, look, I'm at this point now where I'm going to raise money. I'd love you to just have a glance over my my deck and give me some advice. And then, roll on past the investment and stuff. I then said, look, I need a finance director. And he turned up at my house to tell me that he didn't think I was ready, and then went away with the job. And he's been instrumental in getting us to where we are today. But again, if you weren't relationship led, you wouldn't be having a finance director that you placed into a role 4 years ago or whatever it was, 7 years ago.
Interesting. Oh, well, that's good to hear, because I would like to hope that that's definitely my approach. But yeah, there's still a lot of quite shoddy kind of tactics, unfortunately, used in the recruitment world, which gives us a little bit of a bad reputation with some people, which is pretty frustrating. But
I do think that COVID reset that a little bit, because a lot of people lost their jobs across industry, across practice in terms of finance, and even recruiters themselves, lost their job. So when you came back out the back of this, and I've got still a few friends that are in recruitment, have done very well. It forced you to actually go and build relationships with people again, because the person that you used to deal with was no longer there. Yeah. And actually you don't know where they are anymore, because they might not have a job, or they might have gone somewhere else, and you've got to redo that. So it kind of almost reset people a little bit to become more relationship led and not just chucking CVs out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to Endurance Zone.
So yes, Endurance Zone is the largest rewards and loyalty platform in the world now. We are a white label tech solution that offers rewards and loyalty platforms white labeled for gyms, health clubs, governing bodies, sports organisations all over the world. So used by those clients in different ways. If you're looking at retention, the platform has ways that can aid your retention strategies. If it's engagement, yes. If it's driving brand awareness, advertising, gamification, the platform allows you to do all of that. So again, that consultative piece we were talking about is we'll go into a gym and say, look, what are the behaviours that you're trying to promote? What is the what are the challenges you're facing, and how can we help you? So we'll always start a call going, look, I could show you our platform, but it does a million weird and wonderful things, right? Tell me what your problem is, and we'll then be able to navigate you through our platform to say, look, this is a solution that will help you with it.
Obviously, building something like that, there's a massive amount of back-end work. Yep. But when you started, was it in your mind already that, okay, this is going to take several years before we kind of get to market?
Yeah, so do you know, people ask me this question because when you look at, say, my LinkedIn, it'll show that, and then our platform went live in September 21. But actually, there's a slight journey there. So, when I had my back surgery, I was told that, look, running, rugby, those forms of modality are now done. You need to, ideally, cycling, right? Low impact, great recovery. As you sort of lean forward, it opens up the vertebrae in your back, which will support that sort of operation piece you've had. And the doctor said, like, go and join British Cycling. They're bound to give you loads of benefits to, start you on this new journey. So I thought, okay, cool. Yeah, I like cycling. So went to join British Cycling. But unless I wanted a magazine or a cycling holiday, there weren't any benefits. And I was expecting, bikes, glasses, helmets, nutrition, and there wasn't. I was then at a gym that were, serving me rewards, but they were Papa John's Pizza and Starbucks. And it was this kind of aha moment of going, well, look, if you're a health organisation, you're a membership platform that's built around that sports, surely you're wanting to offer them something that was actually tangible to the audience, as opposed to just putting up some rewards and pretending that it's a benefit to people. So because I was interested in cycling, I had this idea to go, well, actually, do you know what? I'm going to focus on building out a cycling network, and I called the business Discount Cycling Network. So I'd sit there, in my lunch breaks and stuff, flicking through magazines, cold calling the likes of Halfords and Muck Off and Specialized Bikes, going, look, I'm going to build out this platform where cyclists are going to join to get these discounts. Now, what I've seen in the industry is there's lots of affiliates out there, and if you can offer a 10% discount and somebody's taking a 10% commission, that's not that valuable. And if you can Google it, consumer-wise, again, that's not that valuable. So do you know what? Don't pay me a commission. Give me 20% discount instead, or whatever it would be. They give me the high discount, and they go, well, how are you going to make money? And I go, well, don't worry about that at the moment. But if I can then give all these, really big offers that people go, wow, I can't find them online, it's going to create that sort of membership of people coming in and going, wow, I'm getting real benefit here. So short version is I did that, and I had about 50, 60 cycling brands. And in 18 months, I had more members logging into my little crappy Wix site that I'd built to get access to all of my discounts, which was more than British Cycling's membership. So I went back to British Cycling and said, hey, I've cracked it, guys. I've figured something out here. Why don't you license this off me? And they said, look, we love it. We really like that, but we don't want to send people to you. We want to keep people in our world, and we want to understand our members more. How could you do that? And that was around 2020 as COVID was starting to kick off. And I used that time to then go, do you know what? That's actually a really good business model there. If we could find a white label solution that we could build into other people's apps, other people's websites that looked and felt like them, single sign on. So again, that user journey is great flow. You join British Cycling, you log into your membership platform. Hey, there's all your rewards. You click on it, and there's a whole host of rewards that are really valuable to you. That's going to work. And we launched in September 21 our first white label platform, and we signed our first client in September 21, which was Yellow Jersey Bike Insurance. We signed a contract with them for 3 years, and then they renewed again afterwards. And then since then, we've kind of replicated and learnt as talking to a gym that's very different to a governing body and saying, well, actually, for us, we've got off-peak members and we want to add value to them, but we've got peak members and we want to add more value to them, and we want to move people from that bucket to that bucket. How do we do that? And then we've gone on to develop parts of technology like locking rewards so that you can show off-peak members, 40% off Garmin, but when you click on it, it says, hey, upgrade to peak membership to unlock this reward. So helping drive those behaviors. So as we've gone through different industries, different markets, different clients, we've learned different things that they've wanted to achieve and then built the technology around that.
Okay, amazing. So actually then it maybe didn't seem like then such a long time from when you first started that. So because otherwise I was thinking, wow, from a motivation point of view to kind of from the start to that point must have been quite challenging, but it sounds like you had a few, let's say, deviations to the plan as it went along, and you, as you said, you learnt from what you were being told.
Yes, but at the same time, I'd say you still very much need that motivation, because having got 187,000 people to sign up for my Discount Cycling Network, to then have to completely rebrand, lose all of those members effectively, and then turn it into a B2B and taking that leap of faith. When everybody was losing their jobs during COVID, I had my job and I quit. And then I spent all my life savings. And I've got a very lovely wife who backs me on it. So again, that motivation, but I think it's because I'd seen, I'd been told by a reputable governing body that actually, do you know what? We could use that technology. We haven't seen anything like that, but we want it white labeled and we want it in our platform. And it was that kind of catalyst to go, there's a need there. Let's go and see what we can do.
Looking back in those early years, what were the biggest challenges that you didn't expect? What were the things that were like, okay, that kind of came out of nowhere, and what really challenged you there that was a surprise?
There's two things, and it sounds like, and I need to get across that it sounds like I'm trying to say everything's super positive with work, right, and business. It's all rosy. It's bloody not, right? When you're working all hours under the sun, and I think everybody that's ever started a business knows you're the cleaner, you're the chef, you're the salesperson, the accountant, all of that kind of stuff. But I'd say actually it's the scaling very quickly, and it was kind of taking a product to market that people wanted very quickly. We actually needed to raise money pretty quickly because we actually needed more resource, because we'd done the hard yards of selling this and building this off our own, bootstrapped it for 3-4 years ourselves, hired a few members of staff. Myself and my co-founder weren't paying each other for 2 years. We were paying our staff instead. But then we got to a point where, as we started to bring these clients on board, we were like, actually we need somebody operationally to onboard these people. We need more tech resource here, because we're very limited in terms of what we know, and they're telling us they need points APIs and they need gamification and wearables, and we're out of our depth here. We need to hire somebody, otherwise all the hard work we've just done is going to come tumbling down because the service levels won't be there. And that was one of the hardest things, because I think it's very easy to go and get money, but actually if you're scaling, you want the right money. You want people that, certainly from an angel perspective, can help you on the journey, can understand the journey that you're going on, can offer you insight and advice, not just cash. And I think that was very important for us, was that we got the right investors on board. So that first bit was tough, because it's a long process trying to get investment and building out data rooms and forecasting 5 years in advance with a finger in the air. It's hard work. So that was a really challenging piece for us. And then it was about hiring the right people. And you'd think as a recruiter that was an easy thing to do, but actually, because in the early days we still probably didn't know who we were. We knew there was a product there. We knew that people wanted it, but we probably still weren't too sure what was our product market fit. Who were we really targeting here? Which then stops us from going, right, we need these types of people. So they were probably the challenges, but again, we went through the process of getting the investor on first, who then spent 6 months with us, looking at us, going through, what is our product market fit? What get all your ideas out. No idea is a bad idea, and then going, right, that's a really good idea. That's a good one. Right, let's laser focus on those first, which then allowed us to go through the recruiting of salespeople, operational people, brand managers, all of that.
Yeah. So you mentioned co-founder there, and I believe actually you've had, at one point you've had 2 co-founders, and you had very complementary skills. You kind of talked about this triangle that you had, yourself with more kind of sales operations, another co-founder with more IT, another one with more marketing.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm wondering, was that a conscious decision in terms of identifying those people to be with you as co-founders, or was it more about the relationship that you had with them, and that you knew them before and worked with them before, or trusted them, or whatever? Or was it really conscious that, okay, I need somebody with tech, I need somebody with marketing?
2 things, actually. Super conscious on one of them. So one of my co-founders, who's our CMO, is Ed Hawleston, also happens to be my brother-in-law. Nothing to do with the reason why I hired him, because I think I made it very clear on the way in, sort of thing. Business is business and family is family, right? If we fall out on a Friday and we've got a barbecue on a Saturday, I don't expect you to raise anything, But it happens that, marketing degree, worked for Arden University and a couple of charities, marketing director, SEO skills. He was just the perfect fit for somebody to come in and look at market analysis and look at targeted demographics of clients and all of that kind of stuff. So when I approached him about it, initially he was, I'm not in a position where I'm going to quit my job and come and do this, but I'll give you a bit of guidance and help you, sort of thing, along the way. And then very soon, I think he saw the opportunity and said, okay, I'm all in on this. And actually, we outsourced the technology initially, and then we were approached by a guy in the States called Todd Jennings, and he ran a OTT platform, which is over-the-top platform, endurance video streaming. So he was an Ironman athlete and tech whiz, and he rang me one day and said, I've just seen your rewards platform. I'd love this for our OTT platform. The brands resonate with our audience. And I think over a 3-month period of me chatting with him, I managed to convince him to quit doing what he'd been doing for the last 2 years and come and join me as a co-founder on the technology side. And then, yes, I always explain it's this perfect triangle of, sales and operations, marketing, and technology. And I think anybody that runs a business or is looking at running a business, the first approach is identify what your skills are and be really honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Yeah.
And the bits that you're not good at, go and find somebody that is.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. And that brings us back maybe full circle to recruiting now. So I'm really interested to know, are you taking anything that you learnt from your recruitment days into your recruitment process now when you're building out your team?
Yeah, so you're right. Before you mentioned about I recruited senior finance positions, audit, tax into Big Four, and then moved into CFOs and FDs into industry. And in that basis, there was a mix of very much qualifications and then skill set. And I would say none of that, because finance people are not salespeople, right? And in a scaling business, we needed salespeople, and they're very different people. But one of the things that I guess resonated with me was there were one or two candidates that I had, Tom, who's our finance director, being one of them, that had personality. And I think for me, it was kind of, I remember Paula, who was his line manager at Goodyear, saying, John, he's a great guy. He would fit in perfectly with the rest of our team here. So I think for me, and I mentioned it previously, it's about personalities and people that fit within our business. We don't overly take ourselves too seriously. We're not all buttoned up with ties and suits and stuff. We go and work out with our clients. We go on bike rides. We've done paddleboarding with our clients. We wanted people that can fit in, work hard, are driven, are competitive. My God, we need competitive people. And that was what was important. So kind of a yes and a no. Like, it's interesting, but I don't care about qualifications, which I think in Michael Page it was very much like, what are qualifications? What university have they been to? Yeah. For me, I don't care. I never went to university. I never did A-levels. I went straight into playing rugby and then working. But by Christ, did I work hard?
Yeah.
And that's more important.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, really. But
yeah, it does. But so when you're obviously personality then is critical for you, and that ability to fit with the team and within the culture of the business that you've just described. But how are you identifying that? Because a lot of times that's here, right?
Yeah.
It's the gut,
which
isn't, in my experience, 100% reliable.
100%.
Unfortunately.
So true.
So I'm interested, is it kind of really down to that kind of gut feeling, or is there anything else you're doing to kind of help identify those people? Yeah,
so we'll get to know people. So I believe it or not, don't use recruiters because, I don't want to see a load of CVs. So we'll meet people. And they might be working in a gym. They might be working at a brand that we work with or something. But when you go to a networking event or you turn up at an expo and you get on this person and you end up having a bit of dinner or a beer or whatever it might be, and you just kind of keep an eye on them and go, do you know what? I like that guy or girl. It's they could be good for our business. And then you kind of start planting the seeds. And we've got a couple of people at the moment that we're looking at, and we've planted the seeds probably 6 months ago. Go, God, do you know what? I'd definitely hire you. Like, oh, well, really? Well. And then the next conversation you have, they're like, so are you hiring? And you're like, well, we will be, yeah. We're looking at adding some more heads in for 25. I can't promise anything, but let's have a coffee. And you just start to spend some time with these people over a 6 month or 3 month period, and I will generally get a pretty good feel as to whether they're right. And then now I'll put them in front of some of the other team. But the people that we've hired, we've invited them out for dinners twice generally before they even get an offer. Okay. We'll say, hey, come out and meet the team. Like, this has got to be right for you. Chat to the team, ask them questions about what it's like to work here, what we're doing, what we're building, what I'm like to work for. And it gives them an opportunity, and also I then get to say to someone, what do you think? Well, a bit shy, a bit quiet, said this, said that. But fortunately, the feedback's been like, seems really good.
Yeah.
There's only been once that we hired somebody that had loads of industry experience that we thought was going to be good because they had the industry experience and they knew everybody. But actually that didn't work because they knew everybody and they knew him.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah. That's funny because I I've made the same mistake back in the day when I was working for a brand, and on paper, the amazing experience, amazing connections.
Yeah.
But it just didn't work.
You can have all the connections in the world, but if you don't know how to use them or work with them, it's useless, really. And I've said this to the team several times. One of the big advantages we have in this space is people that have been in this space, this loyalty and rewards in this specific industry that we've been in, have either done it very badly and they've gone, or they're doing it very badly. One of the benefits that we've got is taking people outside of the industry. We've not been in this industry. No one knows us really apart from what we do now. Nobody knows my staff apart from that they've worked at Endurance Zone in this industry. And that seems to be holding us in good stead because, again, we are heavily service-led, heavily relationship-led, and that's working because people can't go, I remember you from Les Mills or this gym, and I didn't like it. What are you selling now? Sort of thing. We've kind of got these fresh eyes of people coming in with a fresh business.
Yeah. Interesting. So, well, maybe connected a little bit to that and connected to those opportunities to network. I know that you're keen on doing this sort of thing, first of all, so podcasts, and I know you've done some public speaking. You were at the Running Industry Alliance conference last year or the year before, whenever it was. So what do you get out of that? I mean, is that again just an opportunity to start kind of sowing the seed with particular people, or it's really about selling the business, or putting yourself out there all the time, especially in your position now when you have a lot of other topics, I'm sure, on your desk. So why is it important for you that you're still out there kind of doing that?
So I think some people think, I had a comment where somebody goes, God, you do a lot of speaking and you're at this fitness expo on stage doing this or that. It's actually the opposite from the public piece of like brand awareness is great and all that. But actually the bits that I like is you get to talk to so many people that you understand. So when you explain what you do, they'll go, do you know what, we've been looking for something like that, but actually we need it to do this. And I see it as a massive information gathering piece. And you're right, the Running Industry Conference is a really interesting one. So I'm not sure when this podcast will go out, but I've just been appointed to their board. So Beck's invited me to come and join their board because she said, look, you're good at sort of listening to people, and actually it's quite, this whole thing is about how do we improve the running industry, and being able to sit there and just have a beer with somebody, have a coffee with somebody and say, what are your challenges? That's the bit that I really like, and that's the bit that she'll see value in me. How do we improve the industry together? For me, those events are just great. You just get to meet lots of people, you get to talk to lots of people, and then you get to take that away and go, do you know what, I was chatting to this event company over here as an example, and one of the biggest things that they say is they're still handing out gift bags, and they've got printing, and they've got protein bars in there and stuff. And for us, how do we turn that into a digital swag bag? How do we work with their partners, the event partners, build that into our reward platform to be able to give to all of their runners or riders or whatever it may be, that ultimately saves them costs, helps the environment because we're not pumping loads of stuff into plastic bags. So that's just one example, but I just like meeting different people, and generally we'll always say business does come off the back of it, but we don't necessarily need to always be talking about, hey, this is what we do, come and talk to us. It's more about just chatting to somebody and saying, well, what do you do? Oh, well, we do this. They'll then remember that. They'll come to you when the time's right, and maybe you meet them again and say, hey, how did that thing go that you were talking to me about? Oh, yeah, it went well. And then the relationship's going.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've talked in the past about how important your support network is, support group, and particularly calling out your wife. But I'm thinking that, listening to you here, obviously you're the founder and CEO of Endurance Zone. I think you sit on the board of UK Active, or a part of the digital part of UK Active. Yeah,
Digital Futures, yeah.
You're joining the RIA board. You're the founder, I think, of the largest cycling club, and the large non-profit cycling club.
Yep.
You're married, you're a husband, you're a father.
Yep.
I was going to ask, how do you find a balance? Perhaps I should say, do you find a balance? And then if the answer is yes, how do you keep all those balls in the air and plates spinning.
I didn't have much of a balance.
Okay.
And I go through spurts where there isn't a balance. But I have a very supportive wife who is the CEO of our home, for sure. That's for sure. I've got 2 kids. I've got a 7-year-old boy and I've got a 10-month-old little girl. And to be honest, I think I enjoy what I do, for starters. I absolutely love it. I love the business. I love being with people. I love socializing with people. I love understanding people. It's just what makes me tick. I do a lot of hours, and I tend to say to people that I break my hours into 2. So, I'm usually in the office for 8:30. So again, I get up. I do, breakfast with the kids and take the dog for a walk and all that kind of stuff, and then come to work, go home normal hours. I go home at 5:30 generally, and then I'll have that couple of hours window where we have dinner and we make sure there's no phones there, and we have put the baby Millie to bed. I absolutely love that because she's at that age where she really dad, and come in, she lights up. That fills me full of joy.
Sure.
So put her to bed, and then the person who suffers from it probably is my wife, because then I move on to US time, and then I'll be probably till 10:30, 11 o'clock most nights on calls with gyms or whoever it may be. And somebody said to me the other day, well, you need more staff, like surely you need to get more staff. I'm like, I'd hire more staff, great. It's just the way I'm built. I'm still going to then go, right, what market can we look at now? What can I pick up now? But as I say, she gets it. She supports me. She knows that I do it for family. Fortunate enough that we take regular holidays, and I generally don't work on those holidays. I only take week holidays, because if it was 2 weeks, I'd end up dipping back in. But, we're in a position now, and she's been there where it was all hours under the sun. But we're in a position now where we have the staff, we have the infrastructure. I've got my leadership team. I trust my leadership team. That actually, I put one phone call into Tim, our ops director, when I was in Ibiza earlier in the year, and he basically said, "What the hell are you calling me?" He said, "I don't expect to hear from you again." And that's the team you need, right?
Yeah.
So, I think the kids are the one that did it. I think prior to that, it was all hours under the sun, and my wife paid for it. But now we've got the kids and families. Super important. That's all you do it for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If I didn't have the family, I probably wouldn't be as motivated, if I'm honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about sport? Does sport still play an important role in kind of finding that balance? Because I think you after rugby, which obviously you couldn't do, you talked about the fact that you then got into cycling. So is cycling still an important part of your life?
Yeah, very, very much so. And I don't get a chance to do it as often. I used to love running before I had my back. You could wang a pair of trainers on 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you're done. Cycling, not so much. Tire pressure, I haven't pumped them up in a few days. Lycra it up. Do I look good? Does it match my bike? It's very important. These are very important questions to ask before you head out. So I don't do as much as I like to, but probably 3-4 times a month I'll get out, usually with some friends. And then I've got a Garmin tax bike at home, and once or twice a week I'll generally jump on there, half an hour in front of the TV, just spin the legs, clear the head a bit.
Yeah.
But then I'll once or twice a year do a big challenge. So last year we did Tour of Flanders across the cobbles, 100k in the pouring rain. I said this the other day. The closest I can sort of compare to my rugby days: freezing cold, bitter, pain, legs hurting, can't breathe, snotty nose. You finished it and you're like, I'm dead. But by God, was it good?
Yeah.
You finish and you're like, oh, I've earned this Belgian beer. This is great. But yeah, Flanders last year. The year before that, I did Ventoux 3 times in 24 hours. This year, I did London to Paris with Chris, our sales director, Ben Foster, the goalie, ex-goalie, and then Tom Achoa, his commercial guy. And it was great fun, 400 miles, 500 miles in 4 days. So it's that kind of stuff. Like, I'll always set myself a big challenge to do, which then kind of forces you to go, no, you do need to do a bit of training, because you might die otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned Ben Foster there, which reminded me of something else that you do as well, which is you have your own podcast, which is obviously with the co-host of Ben Foster's podcast.
Tom Ochoa, yeah.
So, and that's you're kind of exploring and diving into the business of sports, right?
Yeah.
So why? What kind of led you to do that?
So Tom's a really good friend, and yeah, as you say, he does the Ben Foster podcast with Fozcast and the Football Fill-In, and him and I go on bike rides, and we say like, "Oh, did you hear about Roger Federer's just done a deal with On Running?" Like, yeah. I wonder how much he's been paid. Why has he done that? And then we were talking about Lewis Rees-Zammit, who left playing professional rugby to go and try his hand in the NFL, and it's just things we're interested in. There's a podcast. It's on an app called Wondery, and it's like business wars, and it's like the AFL versus the NFL. And it's all these different like comparisons. I'm just interested in understanding the business makeups and why people do. Why did Tiger Woods leave Nike to go and start his own brand? It seems a bit silly when he's retiring. What's the plan? So we just said, well, we should talk about it. We should research it, and we should do a podcast called "What's the Deal with Sports?" We came up with saying, this week, what's the deal with Michael Jordan? What's the deal with Formula One? What's the deal with Red Bull? And we delve into these things where people go, wow, I didn't know that Red Bull just moved into cycling. And we'd go into, well, why? What was the strategic move, and why have they done it, and how much have they paid for it? And kind of unwrapping the business behind sport. Yeah. And it was a bit of an escape, for me to not be talking about rewards and loyalty and engagement. And again, for Tom, not to be talking about football and goalkeeping and all of this kind of stuff. And it did all right. Our first video did 25,000 views and then 30,000 views, and now all the socials and stuff we've got out, we're at millions of views, and it just kind of worked. And we just enjoy it. It took a bit of a hiatus over the summer just because of kids and holidays and stuff, and then we've just recorded 4 more this week. But yeah, just really interested in it. It's worth putting it out there. And again, I think it positions selfishly myself in that kind of thought leadership thing. I'm not just playing around at this. I'm genuinely interested in business and sport and how things work and how we connect people together and how we can, improve the industry really through various different things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great. Well, I've listened to the Wrexham episode and one other which now escaped me.
Masters.
But yeah, no, it's cool. It's
the Masters golf one everybody seemed to really enjoy that, the mystique behind the Masters and all the crazy rules, and that there's hidden speakers that play bird music, like bird chirping.
I haven't listened to that one. I'll have to check it out.
They put dye in all the lakes at Augusta to make them stand out on TV. It's a really good one because it's things like that. You watch it, and if you ever watch it, you're like, nobody's carrying a bag, but they make like £13 million in 4 days in selling caps and stuff. But you never see anybody with any bags. So there's all these rules around what people can and can't do. It's really, but that's it. It's really interesting to.
I'll check that one out. So I'm interested. Well, looking back over your career, who are the people that have most influenced you, would you say?
Purely career-wise, or just in
general?
General.
Yeah.
Rugby coach at my local rugby Kenilworth down the road, a guy called Mark Juby. Literally, I'd say like most of my childhood structure and competitiveness and any rugby career I had was probably owed to him. He was probably the first sort of mentor in that sense. Yeah. Again, can't take anything away from Michael Page. I had some really good managers. Louise, Sean, as I mentioned before, a director who's now MD out in the US. He was a great mentor for me. That was kind of a balance between, again, he worked hard, balanced it with family. Very structured. He'd be really honest with me in terms of, you've done that wrong, but this is why, straight from the hip. I really appreciated that. And then, to be honest, I've got a really good board. I've got 2 angels that sit on my board. One is the founder of WorldPay, a guy called David Birch. He took a very early interest in what we were doing and gave up a lot of his time in just mentorship without putting any money in. And you could look at that and say, well, he was just keeping close to whether he thought you were going to do well and came in at the right time. But he didn't need to do that. He's a busy guy, so He's been great, and he sits on our board. He's just been in the board meeting with us. Always comes up with good ideas, support, which is probably more my dad. Like my dad's always been my sort of role model mentor, because I mean, like, he adopted me and my brother. He was born arse end of Sheffield. Went out to London, worked for an oil company for 30 years, retired at 55 as a director. Still found the time, and it's only when I had kids I realised what he gave up. Drove me over to Leicester for rugby training on a Thursday afterwards. Just sat there in the car reading a book, came back, and then went to work the next day. Then drove me all over the bloody country on a Saturday for various games. And it's only when you've got kids and you drop them off at football, you think, fucking hell. How did he do this when I had training on a Tuesday, a Thursday, and then when it was county and Midland season, it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. It's things like that you just go. But that's why you do it. You work hard for your kids, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Fail fast, and learn quick.
Okay, and do you feel like you're able to action that?
Yeah, I think there's the old Facebook saying, isn't there? It's like move fast and break stuff, which is very similar. And I think we learn quickly, we pivot quickly, and I think that's what's kind of aided us to our growth to where we are now. Is that we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. We've spent a lot of money on things that we thought were the right things to spend money on, and they weren't, right? But we learned from it very quickly. We pivoted very quickly. And I think the whole business is the same.
What if you could give future leaders within the sports and the outdoor industry 3 pieces of advice? What pearls of wisdom would you share?
Pearls of wisdom, I'm not too sure. One for sure would just be that don't be scared to give it a go. Don't be scared to try something. If you've got an idea, there's a million reasons why you shouldn't do something. You only need one to say give it a go, and it goes back to that fail fast and learn quick mentality. But yeah, definitely don't be scared to give it a go, for sure. Relationships are key. You find your advocates, find your partners, find the people that understand and believe in what you're doing, and work with them. And I guess the third piece, I'd just say, it's a really cliche one, but just work hard. There's no substitute for hard work, and I think everybody said that, and I'm probably going to get people going, "Oh, here we go," but there isn't. If you can learn fast, if you can learn quick and fail fast, but you work hard, that's it. So see, I'm going to give you 4. So that last one could be that, or it could be the other side of it. Is just back yourself. Just back yourself and go. It's yeah. I'm trying to think if there's more. Like if I could go back and tell myself, it'd definitely be like, hard work's gonna work. Back yourself to do it. Don't be scared to fail, and if you do, just learn bloody quick.
Yeah. So if today was your last day, if you were going to hang up your endurance zone boots and retire on an island somewhere, what would your message be to your team?
Well, this depends whether I'm on a deserted island because it's failed and I'm on my own, or whether it's an island like Richard Branson. Let's say it's the latter, right? We've done a good job, we've sold it, or whatever that may be. We've got no plans for that, but if we've sold it, thank you is all you're ever going to need to say. Again, I might have had the idea, and we always have this, I've got weird and wonderful ideas, and I'm always like, what if we could do this? Would it improve the platform if we did this? And I've got the team there that can tell me whether we can deliver on it, whether we should deliver on it. They've done their work to tell me, actually, that client, yes, no. We wouldn't be, and I keep looking over there because my office is over there, right? I can see my team, because we've got a big leadership day tomorrow. It's just thanks for trusting me, because they challenge me on things when it's right to do so, but a lot of times I come in and say, deliver the message this month, this quarter, budgets, whatever it might be, and they just go with me, and I'm going to take that as a positive that they trust me, but it'll just be a massive thank you. Like if we have got to that point where we've done an exit, or we haven't, we just got a great lifestyle business that gives everybody a great life, not going to be here, and I've done it on my own, and it would never be here if I hadn't got the right people in. Yeah.
Perfect.
We're not there yet, though. We've got a long way to go yet.
Great. Well, look, thanks very much for your time, Dave, and sharing so many great insights. I think there's a lot of value there for people to take away. So I appreciate you being so open and honest about everything, and good luck for the coming months and years. And yeah, thanks again.
No, I really appreciate it. If anybody wants to reach out and have a chat, get some advice, I can give them advice. They can give me advice. I'd love to hear from them.
Perfect. Well, we'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes so people can send you a message through LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Cheers,
All
Dave.
right. Cheers, Dave.
Cheers, mate.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with Dave as much as I did. If you did, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks for your support, and I look forward to seeing you soon for our next episode.